invisible dismantler. The exposure happened last month, but the cult you exposed still doesn't know they're finished. You didn't confront them with evidence, didn't stage dramatic interventions, didn't force anyone to acknowledge the manipulation you uncovered. Instead, you did something far more surgical and far more devastating. You exposed their entire operation so smoothly, so subtly, so perfectly that they watched their power structure collapse in real time while believing they were still in control. They got played without ever sensing the game, dismantled without recognizing dismantlement, cooked so thoroughly they're still performing their rituals, still maintaining their hierarchy, still convinced they're the powerful collective they've always been, completely blind to the fact that you've already neutralized every foundation their influence rested on. The architects have been monitoring collective psychology manipulation across civilizations, and they've identified what you executed as imperceptible dissolution strategy, when an operator dismantles group power structures so skillfully that the group continues performing its patterns while the actual power those patterns generated has been completely drained. Most people who expose cults do it through confrontation, presenting evidence that forces acknowledgement, creating dramatic reveals that make denial impossible, attacking overtly in ways that leave no question about what occurred. This satisfies the exposer's ego, but often backfires by strengthening the cult through persecution, narrative, through martyr identity, through members bonding tighter against external threats. You avoided every single failure mode by making the exposure imperceptible to those being exposed. You didn't attack their structure, you rearranged reality around them so subtly that they continue old behaviors, while those behaviors no longer produce the effects they once did. Watch what's happening inside their organization right now. Leadership still holds meetings where they issue commands, still maintains hierarchy where authority flows downward, still performs theatrical displays that used to maintain member compliance. But the commands aren't being followed anymore. Members not in agreement, then do whatever they were planning anyway, treating directives as suggestions rather than obligations. The hierarchy exists structurally, but not functionally. Formal chains of command remain while actual influence flows through informal networks that bypass official channels completely. The theatrical displays still occur, but they're increasingly hollow. Fewer members attend. Those present are mentally checked out. Performances that used to generate reverence now generate awkward silence. You didn't destroy their structures. You drained those structures of power while leaving the empty forms standing. Some members sense something feels wrong, but can't identify what changed. They attend meetings that follow familiar scripts, yet somehow feel meaningless. They receive directives that sound identical to past orders, yet somehow lack weight. They watch leadership perform rituals that look exactly like previous ceremonies, yet somehow seem fake. This vague feeling that something's off creates confusion. Thus, structures appear unchanged. So why do they feel ineffective? Most members resolve this by assuming they're personally changing, going through a phase, having their commitment waver. They don't realize the structures themselves were neutralized because the neutralization was so smooth they can't pinpoint when or how it occurred. They're questioning themselves rather than questioning what you did to their system. The truly elegant element is that you achieved this without becoming their enemy. They don't view you as threat because you never attacked directly. They don't hate you because you never gave them a target for hatred. They don't fear you because they don't recognize you as the source of their dissolution. If they understood what you did, they could potentially reorganize around opposing you, could attempt rebuilding what you dismantled, could at least learn from the experience. But they don't understand, which means they can't adapt, can't defend, can't prevent you from doing this again to whatever they might try to rebuild. You've achieved a victory that generates no counterforce because the Defeated party doesn't recognize defeat. The cult got played so smoothly they're still acting out their power fantasies, completely unaware that the power behind those fantasies evaporated weeks ago. Now the architects are analyzing the specific mechanisms you deployed to achieve imperceptible dissolution, and they're identifying what they call cognitive seed. Architecture, you didn't attack the cult's beliefs directly, but instead introduced subtle questions and alternative perspectives that grew organically within members' minds until they arrived at critical conclusions independently. This is exponentially more powerful than convincing through argument because people resist external persuasion but embrace insights they believe they discovered themselves. You planted seeds of doubt, of critical thinking, of manipulation recognition, but because members experience these realizations as their own thoughts rather than your influence, they had no psychological defenses activated against them. Watch how your seed planting operated. In casual conversations with cult members, you never challenged their beliefs directly. Instead, you asked innocent-sounding questions that contained subtle logical inconsistencies with cult doctrine. That's interesting. How does that work when followed by scenario that exposed contradiction? The member would initially deflect, but the question lingered. Days later, they'd encounter situations where that exact contradiction became apparent. Because you planted the question before the contradiction manifested, they experienced discovering the inconsistency rather than being told about it. This discovery felt like their own critical thinking rather than your manipulation, which meant their ego was invested in the insight rather than defending against it. Some members started noticing patterns after you pointed out isolated incidents. You'd mention something seemingly trivial. Interesting how leadership always announces major decisions right after members raise concerns about something else. Then let them observe whether the pattern continued. When it did continue, they felt like investigative geniuses uncovering manipulation rather than victims being shown manipulation. This reframing is psychologically critical. Victims feel powerless and often double down on denial to avoid that feeling. Investigators feel empowered and continue investigating to maintain that feeling. You transformed potential victims into investigators of their own situation by structuring revelations as discoveries rather than exposures. Others began questioning the group after you validated perspectives they'd been suppressing. Cult members often have doubts they've learned to silence through self-criticism. I'm being selfish. I'm not committed enough. I'm letting ego interfere. You didn't tell them their doubts were valid. You shared your own parallel doubts in unrelated contexts, modeling that questioning isn't character flaw, but healthy cognition. You know, I used to think questioning things meant I wasn't loyal, but I realized loyalty without questioning is just obedience. Members hearing this felt permission to acknowledge their own suppressed doubts without the shame cult conditioning had attached to doubt. Once they stopped suppressing questions, those questions multiplied naturally. A few members started recognizing manipulation techniques after you described those techniques in completely different contexts, discussing historical cults, political movements, abusive relationships. You never said, your group does this. But when members heard detailed descriptions of isolation tactics, love bombing, thought-stopping cliches, and emotional manipulation, they couldn't help recognizing identical patterns in their own experience. Because you framed it as general education rather than specific accusation, they absorbed the information without activating defensive reactions. Then they started seeing the techniques everywhere in their group, experiencing growing horror as they recognized they'd been subjects of textbook manipulation. The architects observed that cognitive seed architecture succeeds where direct confrontation fails because it leverages the target's own cognitive processes rather than fighting against them. When you tell someone they're being manipulated, you trigger defensive responses, denial, rationalization, doubling down on commitment to prove you wrong. When you plant seeds that grow into the person telling themselves they're being manipulated, you've recruited their own intelligence as ally rather than opponent. The cult got played because you made their members play themselves, made them dismantle their own beliefs using critical thinking they believed they were deploying independently. You were never the attacker in their perception, which is precisely what made the attack so devastatingly effective. Something extraordinary is spreading through the former membership now, what the architects call cascade disillusionment, where your seed planting with a few members created chain reactions that spread critical awareness throughout the entire network. Once several members independently began questioning, their doubts validated each other's doubts, creating permission structure for broader questioning that the cult's social pressure had previously suppressed. You didn't need to reach every member individually. You reached key nodes in the social network, who then inadvertently became your agents by sharing their growing doubts with trusted connections. Watch how the cascade operated. Members who'd been questioning in isolation discovered, through careful probing, that others harbored similar doubts. These discoveries were revelatory. Each person had believed they were alone in questioning, that their doubts indicated personal failure rather than legitimate concerns. Finding even one other person questioning transformed the experience from "I'm broken and disloyal" to "wait, maybe the group has actual problems." These pairs and small groups of questioners then became support networks for deeper investigation. They'd compare notes about concerning incidents, validate each other's observations that contradicted official narratives, collectively research information the cult leadership had discouraged them from examining. Some of those questioning clusters included influential members, people who weren't formal leaders but had social credibility within the network. When these respected figures began expressing doubts, it created permission for others to doubt who'd been suppressing questions due to social pressure. The cult had maintained conformity, partly through making dissent seem rare and shameful. Your seed planting broke this illusion by helping members discover dissent was actually common but hidden. Once hidden dissent became visible within trusted relationships, the social pressure flipped. Suddenly conformity seemed naive rather than loyal. Questioning seemed intelligent rather than disloyal. Others discovered that leadership had been lying about specific verifiable facts, financial information, member retention numbers, external criticism. Your questions had prompted some members to independently verify claims leadership made. When they discovered discrepancies between official narratives and documented reality, it shattered trust completely. These members shared their discoveries with others, who then verified other claims and found more lies. What started as discovering leadership, exaggerated minor details escalated into recognizing leadership systematically, manipulated information to maintain control. Members felt betrayed not just by being lied to, but by realizing they'd been participating in spreading lies to newer members without knowing those claims were false. A few members began secretly communicating with people who'd left the cult. Connections leadership had forbidden to maintain spiritual purity. Your seed planting had included mentioning that controlling outside relationships is classic manipulation tactic. When members realized they'd been isolated from external perspectives,